Gerald was born at a very young age, number 432. Gerald came from a humble and happy family. He lived in a small white house with 2 cement swans and beautiful roses. His mother changed it to Gerald to avoid confusing the several other Geralds in class. He claimed to have been struck by ball lightning while lying in bed on a hot Ohio summer evening. His industrious work ethic was forged by his hard-working parents, Bob and Ida, who learned from their mom and dad, so that's how that works. He watched cowboys from sun-baked Oklahoma drive starving cattle into Ohio. He saw neighbors share baskets of food and buckets of water with those without. Gerald learned to help people because that's what people do in a depression. Jerry volunteered rather than have his father on the draft board force him to war. Half his class joined the Ohio National Guard and died in Bataan and Corregidor. Jerry played guitar and sang to entertain his Army Air Corps pals. He sailed into Calcutta, rode by train to Agra, and flew over the hump into China. He served as a radio operator in Kunming, where he thought he learned to say, "Thank you, the food was delicious," in Mandarin to head-shaking waiters at Traverse City's Hunan restaurant. In 1945, he read to his squad the oddly uncoded message, "Allies drop atomic bomb on Hiroshima. War is over." His GI Bill education put him on the path to a career in music. Jerry's faith in music and eye for the ladies led him to the choir director, Patricia.
The guitar piece is a blues song I wanted to play for you, Dad. I hope you're enjoying it. When I was going away to college, Dad gave me advice on how to find friends. Do the things you like to do and you will find people who are just like you. Dad inspired me to always believe that nothing is impossible and that you can learn something from anyone. To me, his youngest son, Peter, Dad was creative, loving, smart, strong, kind, musical, whimsical, generous, and funny. One of his favorite sayings I still like to say to my son today is, when I was a boy, I had a wooden whistle, but it wouldn't whistle. Then I had a steel whistle, but it still wouldn't whistle. Then I had a tin whistle, now I tin whistle.
Dad always believed in me and my siblings. He would not tell us how to live our lives, but gave us an example to live by. He had a remarkable ability to bring people together through music and encourage the best in everyone. He told me whatever I could think, I could do. When I was young, he would remind us to appreciate the food we eat and our home. Years later, I realized the impact that the Depression had on him during his China and India stays.
Well, I always loved my dad, of course. He's the most wonderful father there ever could be. But I didn't always say it, and Dad didn't always say it. But one time in choir, we had this retreat at a Lutheran church, and we were all in the basement sharing ideas about, what would happen if the world was going to blow up, and you could only take 25 people on the rocket ship to the moon to save the world, and people were arguing whether scientists should go or artists and such. And then we all stood up, and the next assignment was to look around the room and, without saying a word, go tell someone in the room that you love them. And Dad ended up coming over to me and embraced me with the biggest bear hug I'd ever had. And he hugged me, and I started to release, but he continued to hug, and I just really felt special and felt the depth of the love that he had for me. It was a very wonderful moment, and something I'll never forget, ever. So that's my one thought.
I was about 8 or 9 years old, making up a song on the piano, and Dad comes over to me and said, "What are you playing?" I said, "Just making up my own song." Then he pulls up a piece of manuscript paper and starts writing down the notes. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm writing down your song." Dad has always encouraged me to be creative and passionate about music and drama. I also remember a time when I played the part of Gretel at age 5, and we had to walk across the stage, and one by one, the older brothers and sisters would leave, and I turned around, realizing I was the only one there. Only in the wings was Dad, just crouching down, waiting with his arms wide open, saying, "Come on, come on." And I ran into his arms, and I felt so loved and protected. I just love that about Dad. I miss you, Dad. And who can forget number 154?
Making wooden toy airplanes with pins as landing gear, rubber band guns, and wooden whistles. Dad was cleaning pots and pans and did not hear my initial scream when I needed help from cutting my ankle. I cried and he quickly calmed me and took me to the hospital for 3 stitches. Dad calmly helped to build a complicated solar cooker science fair project the night before it was due. I got honorable mention. These are just a few examples of Dad being a great dad. One of the last times that I talked to Dad, I said, "Thank you, Dad, for all of the sacrifices that you have made for us." He seemed surprised at what I had said and paused for a while and said, "What?" Again, I said, "Thank you, Dad, for all of the sacrifices that you have made." He simply and calmly said, "You're welcome." I am comforted in knowing that Dad is helping to prepare a place in heaven for me, and I know that I can get through whatever the day may bring because Dad is watching over me. Number 42, drawing S&R men and running around the dining room table to kiss Dad's bald spot. I love you, Dad.
Dad found reflection while staring into the bottom of a clear, cool lake. His private moments were memorialized with trophies of Petoskey stone and driftwood. He showed compassion and caring to everyone. He taught a girl born without forearms how to drive a car. He let a homeless guy sleep on our couch a little longer before lecturing him never to enter our house uninvited again. Ever the teacher, he challenged and encouraged and tested those he loved. He always was remarkably calm in every situation. Dad was funny. He was fun.
My dad would give us rides on his shoes. He once turned around on a snowy freeway to go back to a rest stop where I had dropped my stuffed animal Ralph in the snow. He'd wake me up by saying, "Hey Barb, hey Barb." And when my mom walked in the room, he'd sing, "Here she comes, Miss America." I always felt truly loved, and I'm so grateful for my wonderful dad. The last year of his life, we talked a lot on the phone, and I'd say, "Good night, Dad, I love you." And he would say, "I love you more." This is a poem I found I wrote about him. My dad is made of driftwood, perch, and puns, of cinnamon rolls and popcorn, banjo strings and fun, mortgages, bills, and stitches, poetry, stories, and song, rehearsals and musical pitches, percentage rates, and ping pong. My dad is made of India, of China, and of England, of toffee and of cream puffs. He's quite an extraordinary blend. He's also made of fax machines and root beer. He changes with the seasons, and I appreciate him more each year. My dad is made of number 64, and when I look in the mirror, I see him and hope that someday I can reach up to here.
Happiness was riding in a 1969 Dodge Monaco station wagon pulling a small pop-up trailer, searching for corner posts on a newly platted piece of view property, serving from a warm bowl of fresh popcorn or carving the Sunday roast, conducting a fine choral group, driving down a rutted, rocky trail to find the woods covered with trillium, reading comics in front of a roaring fire, one very tan, very hairy arm hanging out the passenger window of a driver's ed car. Seated by his paddy, surrounded by his 8 pajamaed kids, watching TV before the station signed off for the night.
For 53 was always my favorite. To sum it all up, Dad was a great dad and grandpa. I know he loved George, Becca, David, and Paul. And me, of course. He taught us all to love life, play cards, cutthroat, euchre the best, sing when you're down, sing when you're happy, find the best Petoskey stones, and I'll treasure those moments together when we did, always. Stories in the car, stories picking out driftwood, making bread together. There's so much I can't even begin to say of all the good memories we had together. And I know that he loved us. He taught us to love God. He's always in my heart. He's always in my prayers and my dreams. I'll love you forever, Dad.
Dad had a strong arm and would challenge us to arm wrestling. I always thought I could beat him, but I don't think anybody ever really did. I played cards with Dad and 2 of the grandchildren one time, and one of the grandkids said, "Dad, Grandpa, we're going to let Grandpa win." And Dad looked over at him and said, "Guys, you are going to play to win, and I'm going to play to win, or we're not going to play at all." It was just the way he was. I have many memories of Dad growing up, and I am so grateful later in life to have met Gerald Robinson, the man. He had a great love for my mother, family, faith, friends, and work. He always made time for everyone. His unconditional love for me will always be in my heart. Number 26, Dad.
Probably wanna do one day, like Dolly and the Stucky Kelsey. Probably wanna do one day, very well, very well, very well, not everything. I'm going to Louisiana, of course, see my Susanna singing. Probably wanna do well, day. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. For I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so high froze to death, Susanna, don't you cry.